Hey, what's up guys? So today I wanted to go ahead and talk about the 2020 Create a Card project, which is actually a really cool idea. So what they've done is they got a lot of different archetypes and they're going to be facing them off against each other to basically see which one is going to be the winner. Now, their full project details aren't actually released yet, as this is something earlier on. I was hoping that they would just release it so I can give you guys a better video on this, but I think what a lot of people think is going to be happening is we're going to get newer support for some of these archetypes, as they basically will be battling it out to see which one is going to be the most fan favorite, therefore releasing some more support for some of these archetypes that really didn't get to go ahead and see some play, especially in the meta of games. Some of these are going to be more meta than others, but they basically RNG to see which ones would match up against each other. I think it would have been better if they just had like a giant poll, then they could just see directly all of the most fan favorite lists. But basically, some of them got matched up against things that I felt like are unwinnable, meaning more people are going to be wanting to play or get some new support for some of the other decks. But let's go ahead and first off go over the entire list of some of the newer archetypes here, and I'll give you guys my thoughts on some of these as well as giving you guys some insights if you guys haven't played some of these decks, kind of the mechanics and the ways that these decks would be playing. So anyways, first off, to actually participate in this, you actually have to go to their Twitter page to actually vote. But pretty much these are the archetypes we're looking at. We're looking at the Weathers versus Gradles. Now this one actually already completed over here, and right now we are doing the Valkyries versus the Insectors, but Dynamis and Lightsworn hasn't been posted. They're, I guess, kind of just going all over the place in terms of the orders, but nonetheless, Weathery versus Gradle, this one actually already ended over here, where the Weather has actually won out. So again, there's not really finite details on like which card that they're going to be giving, you know, the archetype, but it's basically, I think a lot of people speculate it's going to be newer support for that archetype. So that one has already ended, so we won't talk too much about that one, but I'll briefly mention how the archetype kind of plays, as Weather never really took off. Gradle was more of a snatch steal deck. And then next up we have Dynamis versus Lightsworn, we have Valkyries versus Insectors, Sylvans versus Cyber Angel, then Fire Kings versus X-Sabers, and then Fortune Ladies versus Hazy Flame, Mermail versus Photon, and then lastly, TG versus Frogs. The next thing I want to go ahead and highlight on is potentially what could be the next ban list also, because if we think about it, you know, who wants to play Frogs when Totally Awesome is at 1? So let's say Frogs get a lot of new support coming out, like Frog wins by a landslide in comparison to TGs. Maybe they'll think about that and then also bump up Totally Awesome. So you can think of it kind of to plan around maybe another archetype, or if you just specifically like that one card that may be limited on the list due to some other factors. But anyways, let's go ahead and kind of check out how they're doing this. So like I mentioned before, the Gradle versus Weather has already technically ended over here. But right now what's going on is Valkyries versus Insectors. And if you guys want to participate, it's just the official Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG Twitter. And basically you just go ahead and vote on the Create a Card project. I like it though. It's a really cool idea, and it kind of gets us more involved in posting on social media and stuff like that. But I like the idea of it. But anyways, let me go ahead and jump back into this as far as the comparison and give you guys kind of an insights on how these decks play. And I'll also give you guys my results here on my personal choices, as kind of that's the point of the video, because a lot of you guys are like, yo, what are you selecting here? Now, I'm not sure if they're just going to make it so, like, for example, you can see that it's Weather versus Gradle, and then like Gradle, since that lost, that's completely out of the picture. And then Weather, I'm not sure if Weather has to battle against something else, or if that just means Weather's getting new support, like there's going to be all 8 of these are getting new support, or if they're going to condense it all down to 1. I honestly have no idea. Again, it tells us there's just going to be more details, but there hasn't been like finite details on like, okay, that's how it's going to be working. But basically, it's just to get us to kind of talk a little bit about the game. And I'm curious to know what you guys think about these down below in the comment section below. Like, if you guys want to participate, you guys can say like A, you know, even though this one's already over, you guys can tell me what you guys would have selected, because I'll tell you guys what I wanted to select. So anyways, in terms of Weather and Gradle, I would have honestly gone with either one of these. These are like 2 archetypes that I'm not really huge for. Technically, I've tried out every deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! Pretty much. I at least try out. How the Weather archetype works is they gain bonus effects depending on columns, and I think that's a kind of a cool little effect over here. Let me clear out this. But pretty much what it comes down to is the card that I think was really cool for the archetype is the Canvas. So basically, the Weather monsters in the same column would get this effect, where at the start of the damage step, if this card battles an opponent's monster, you can banish this card, then return that opponent's monster to the hand, and then basically you get this card back anyways. But pretty much what it comes down to is every time they attack, you just bounce back. It's a relatively slower archetype at the end of the day. It's not like a link spam super negate heavy archetype. Even looking looking at the Greydale, so I think this was kind of a good, I think they should have like specifically selected 2 decks that had similar gameplay styles, or like that would be more fair, so to speak, because some of these matchups, I feel like people are going to select one over the other 100%. But anyways, how the Greydale archetype worked is they were basically a bunch of smaller monsters, and then when they would be destroyed by battle, a lot of them would basically snatch steal. But then the Eagle would be able to also snatch steal when it was destroyed by monster effect. The Cobra would be able to snatch steal an opponent's monster via a trap. If you destroy it via a trap effect, you can still steal a monster. And then Alligator was spell, so basically correspond to the color. So I like that. That one extra deck card, really. But for the most part, the archetype was kind of seeing some play in like a variant of Kaiju Greydale. So basically, you tribute your opponent's monster, and then you'd go ahead and give them a Kaiju, and then you would crash your Greydale into it, and then you would basically steal the Kaiju right back. You would take some damage because the monsters don't have the best of stats, but that was kind of how the archetype would work, and if you would be able to destroy them via other means, whatever the case may be, yeah, some of them would get different effects because they would activate depending if they're destroyed by monster or if they were destroyed by a trap effect. But for the most part, Eagle was like one of the more popular ones, but people just bounced back. It's a slower archetype, and I felt like that matchup was kind of fair because they were relatively slow. But in terms of this one, I honestly would be perfectly fine with either. But again, Weather was the winner of that. Next up, moving on to the Dino Mist. Here's my thoughts on the Dino Mist archetype. That archetype, back when Pendulum like kind of first came out, it was like a Turbo Cyber Dragon Infinity deck. But with the new Pendulum rules, the deck fell apart. In fact, a lot of Pendulum decks fell apart once that that ruling came by, and then also Metal Foes is gone, which is like the best Pendulum like card ever. But I think that this one, a lot of people are just going to simply vote for Lightsworn. I feel like Dino Mist, because I'm not personally a huge fan of just Pendulums just in general, Dino Mist never really got to see play. Lightsworn has seen multiple placements in top tier tournaments like Minerva Sworn and stuff like that. But Dino Mist never really had a chance. Dino Mist was never really popular. It just never really took off. But that whole archetype, again, you can make other things in it, but at the end of the day, what made it good was the Cyber Dragon Infinity Turbo deck. Lightsworn, obviously, a lot of people have probably already seen and played Lightsworn, but that's a deck where you're just trying to mill cards to get RNG effects of cards in the graveyard. Then you can summon Judgment Dragon, which is still a really awesome monster. And now we have AA Zeus, which is like a quick effect Judgment Dragon on either player's turn, which is, or your opponent's turn, which is like absolutely insane. I mean, I guess you could use yours too, but pretty much using it on your opponent's turn is absolutely amazing. But I would like to see more Lightsworn support, so B, I gotta give my vote to Lightsworn. Now, for C, Valkyries versus Inzectors, I gotta give my vote to Inzectors. Valkyrie, they do have a few cards that are pretty insane. You special summon a bunch of cards, but I like that archetype's artwork, but I'm not really super familiar with how it kind of plays in its own state, as in like just pure Valkyries. You can try to make like an extra deck spam. You can kind of make it a Christia. Let me go ahead and actually go to some of the Valkyries, as it's been so long since I actually have a bunch of the gameplay, but for the most part, I would say the viable way to play this deck was to lock your opponent out of playing via Christia, which is kind of where I would say Cyber Angels become a little bit more viable as well. As there is some more ritual support coming out, but in this vote, I gotta give it to Inzectors. But I don't even think Inzectors would even do anything. Like, if 3 Dragonfly and 3 Hornet, like, trying to get that summon Dragonfly and having that Hornet and successfully getting that effect off, good luck in 2020, because it's just going to be so negate heavy. And on top of that, Inzectors don't have an insane turn 1 board that I'm aware of that like other decks just simply cannot make, as you would need, of course, something to pop. There's like the smoke variant of Inzectors where you're able to see your opponent's hand, but again, I just don't think it's that insane in this day and age to just go ahead and summon and pop a couple cards, because it still relies off of that first initial summon. If that doesn't go through, there's not too much follow-up plays that the archetype really has. But anyways, moving on to so C, I already voted for Inzectors. That one you can vote right now. Sylvans versus Cyber Angels over here. Sylvan actually did see a lot of play. That was it was an Excavate. It was a different mechanic than Mill, but at the end of the day, it was kind of the same idea as Lightsworn. But I think that archetype, if they got a couple more cards, I mean, they have some insane draw power. They have Sylvan Charity. I think that one will probably win out by a landslide, unless there's just a lot of huge Cyber Angel fans over there. I think that one will definitely be taking it. But Cyber Angel is a ritual archetype. There is some more ritual stuff coming out, but again, going back to anything that's revolved around fairies, the only way I feel like a lot of those decks become viable is literally slamming down a Christia, which is just, at the end of the day, that's just no special summons for your opponent, and that's kind of how you would be able to successfully win with that archetype. Next up, this is Fire Kings versus X-Saber. My face cam blocks this one, so we'll look at it this one. So Fire King is an archetype where it relies heavily off of destruction effect, destroying your own cards, getting Garunix to basically die via a card effect, and then it comes back the next turn popping everything. The thing with that archetype, I think it's just outdated. The mechanic of, oh, my card's coming back next turn, where Yu-Gi-Oh! This day and age, there is no next turn. Like, you're beating your opponent that instant turn. Especially with Darkhold Regeki, like, they might get excited, oh, you're gonna go and Darkhold me? I'm coming back. But, like, what would you have to do? Play Battle Fader? Like, realistically, playing trap cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Most of the time, it's just not too advantageous. Obviously, Impermanence is like the trap card that everyone really uses, but it's more of a hand trap than an actual trap card where you're setting and waiting for it. But I think Fire King has been really outclassed, and I don't really know what would make it better. I think maybe instead of waiting for it to become the like standby phase, you would just get the effect of the card instantly, and we would need to be like a hand trap that special summons your Fire King after it was destroyed, and it would gain the effect as if it was special summoned. And then we're looking at a disruption of clearing the board. But even when we look at what is currently available with a Machina, where you're able to go and just summon the card and pop everything that's like, what is it, 3K and under, it just popping all of it once isn't enough. You need multiple negates in Yu-Gi-Oh! Or multiple disruptions to become viable, and Fire King just simply doesn't offer that. But again, that would be a step in the right direction for the untap, and I don't know if there's enough cards. They would have to release like a lot of cards, or maybe it's just a continuous card, like a field spell that just lets you quick effect the monster every single turn, like once per turn or something. But also, if you guys got any ideas for what some of these cards could get as like other cards, it would be kind of cool. As I would really like to see some cool Lightsworn support for the Dark Lightsworn. Actually, I kind of want to touch upon this. I'm 100% voting for Lightsworn, as like that one is an archetype that I generally get a lot of views when I was uploading Lightsworn content. But with Lightsworn, this is what I would like to see: some support for like the Dark Lightsworn. No one plays any of those. Those are just kind of not very good. Even like the Dark Judgment Dragon, they're just not good. I would like to see some more support for like the Dark Lightsworns. But anyways, X-Sabers, they were a really good archetype. With Rescue Cat being in the game, they're a little bit OP. If you open up Rescue Cat, you'd be able to go Dark Soul, and then you'd be able to pop a bunch of cards. Like, this was a really good archetype. This was what is it? San Diego Regionals. I got multiple second places with it. Couldn't get the first place from the regionals, but X-Saber is a deck that I could definitely tell you it is a really like good Yu-Gi-Oh deck in terms of like card advantage, setting up, like it's a good Yu-Gi-Oh deck to learn how to play Yu-Gi-Oh. That's how I kind of felt like with the deck. And like, for example, like Gladiator Beast is another deck where you can really learn Yu-Gi-Oh from certain archetypes, and I really felt like in terms of my Yu-Gi-Oh gaming career, I felt like I learned a lot through X-Sabers and Gladiator Beasts the most. His card advantage meant something back in the day in Yu-Gi-Oh! Nowadays, card advantage doesn't really mean anything. It's just like, turn one, can you break my board? And X-Sabers, they are a slower archetype. They don't really, they have like, what is it? They have one like X-Saber card that lets you like negate a summon. I forgot the name of it. Is it Saber Slash? They had a couple of interesting cards. It's Saber something. Saber Hole? There it is. So it's a counter trap when you control an X-Saber. I mean, there really isn't too much negation in the deck, though, overall. There are some plays, like I did play at one point, the Ragigura with the Gothams. Right? Okay, there is a loop that you can do with this card. It's called the Ragigura loop. It requires like 1-for-1 and like double Ragigura. But like, there is a way for you to basically loop your opponent. I don't believe they eroded any of it, but like, other than that, the deck doesn't really do too well. I mean, obviously, if you loop your opponent, that's OP, right? But in terms of Sabers coming back into the game, again, when you look at the speed of the game, I don't think that anything, like, what would you do in X-Sabers turn one? Like, you're going to go ahead and go, like, Boggart Knight, summon another card, Fall Troll, and then attempt to go for some link plays. I don't know. I just think that there are better options. But back in the day when you could set Postule, you could set Emmer's Blade, you can set Dark Soul, like, and set up for your plays, that was good. Then you'd explode, and you'd have like, your big play. And if the push didn't go through, well, hopefully you can stall enough with that extra Postule. But I think X-Sabers, in terms of this one, I would like to see this one because I'm kind of biased towards that, as that's an archetype that I felt like I really learned a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh with. But anyways, yeah, Fire King is just kind of outdated too. And both of these are just outdated in terms of the mechanics. For Hazy Flame, they were supposed to make this, was it Basilisk Trice? I think they changed the name, right? Was it Hazy Flame? Oh, gosh. Bass? Oh. Trice. Let me type in Trice. Okay, here it is. The whole goal was to make this card over here, and Hazy Themes, it was called Blast O'Clock and then changed to Blast Trice, but it's supposed to get all these like attachments to it, and then it can't be short with card effects. It was supposed to be like some super boss monster, but overall, it wasn't really that insane. I don't know what this archetype, it's like a rank 6 archetype, right? Hazy Flame, yeah. They're all like 6s over here, and like, I just don't know what they would really need for the archetype to actually make it viable in the game. I would more be interested to see what they could come out with, but I gotta give my vote out with Fortune Ladies, as that's a cool mechanic. You summon them to go away, but again, the Fortune Ladies have insane draw power. In fact, I'm gonna try linking some of these videos down below, as I think that they are quite cool. Like the Fortune Lady archetype has probably one of the best draw powers in almost any archetype, with like all the allures. They've got they can mix in the D draw engine, and like you can do a lot of stuff with Fortune Ladies. I think Fortune Ladies, if I was to pick one, has a lot more hype potential than Hazy Flame. So in terms of that vote, I will give it to Fortune Ladies. Now in terms of G, I mean, come on, you guys already know, I gotta go with Mermails. That is a very explosive archetype, although it can be a little bit OP with Moonlit Glacia, and then if you can go Moonlit Glace Trish and then Water Art. I've seen some people try different variants of that combo to basically get rid of almost all your opponent's outs. And then with the newer cards like the Deep Sea archetype, you're able to go ahead and check out your opponent's hand and get rid of a card. Like, they can do some really nasty things. And in terms of Photon, they're okay. Photon can throw up 2-3 negates. But Mermail doesn't really, I mean, technically, yeah, you can make other things from Mermails, other Link monsters, Appaloosa, whatever the case may be, just to start negating. But Mermails is just a very aggressive deck, and I liked it personally, and this one I'll be kind of biased towards, as well, as I did play that deck for quite some time. But Mermails was a very fast deck too. I'd say like that was one of the like turning points in Yugioh. It was just like Megalo's game, like a lot of times. But I would say in terms of that, I will give it to Mermails. Photons, I mean, they have some okay cards with like the Link monster and the Exceed, but I would say, I don't know, I see a lot of Photon decks once in a while. It's like one of those like Photon Galaxy ads. I don't know if it's more of like casual audience that kind of likes it. The deck can be almost competitive. It's just like a few cards short becoming really good, but that one, I'll give my vote to Mermail 100%. But next up, TGs versus Frogs. Now, the thing with TGs is it is a Synchro archetype, and you normally think, oh, you're going to vote for that because you love Synchros. True, but like the new stuff kind of locks you into TGs. They do have a super boss monster. In fact, I recently covered it with the new Master Rule. Like, TGs were insane with Triple Librarian. Like, the deck was absolutely OP. But with the whole like junk engine being very powerful as well, I feel like I like that as well, and being active on being able to go for the Hot Red Dragon Archfiend King of all calamities, negate every single card. I think that's just much better, whereas TGs, they can kind of spin the board, but like, again, I forgot the name of the TG Link monster off the top of my head. They probably haven't changed the name since I last looked at every single Yu-Gi-Oh card. What is it? TG... is it Trident Launcher or something? Oh yeah, Trident Launcher. So you can special summon a TG, but then like where is it? You can't special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except for TG monsters. Technically, I guess you could special summon during your opponent's turn if you happen to have the option to go ahead and do so. Maybe IP Masquerena could be somewhere in there, but I don't know if people are going to make that and then go for this. But I still think that TGs, since it locks you to it, I'm really losing interest in it. But then I'm like looking at Frogs, I'm like, for me personally, I never really liked playing against Paleozoic. One, it was so slow. Two, like the way that deck wins is just being super impressive. Oh, something, no, stop this, so stop this. And then with the Frogs, with Totally Awesome, I think that with it at 1, I mean, you can put a lot of great frog support, but at the end of the day, that's what people want to go ahead and make, unless we're talking Frog FTK, which is a totally different topic. But in terms of the TG archetype, yeah, it's a Synchro archetype, but I feel like since you're locked into it, I don't really have any say towards either one of these. But in terms of what can potentially open up the doors for more plays, I mean, maybe Frog will open up the doors, because we're not talking Frog Monarchs. This is really old school talking about that. That's obviously not going to be a thing at this day and age. Like, Monarchs in general is a lot slower, especially when we're talking about Frog Monarchs. It's just too slow in 2020. So that one, I'll leave it up to whatever. I don't even want to give my vote on that one, because I would say I just don't really like playing against Frog. So, I'll give that one a vote to TG, not because I want to play it, but because I don't want to play against Paleozoic Frog, because that deck just takes way too long, especially if any of you guys play in Dueling Book. You guys know what I'm talking about with those half-hour duels. with that deck. But anyways, guys, those are my votes. And if you guys want to, again, participate, let me know A, B, and C, D, E, F, G, H, what would you vote for down below. But the only one that I really would like to see, honestly, this, I would like to see Mermails, and I would like to see Dark Lightsworn support, because I was really hyped up when they announced some of these Dark Lightsworns and Twilight Sworn. It's so cool, but they were so underwhelming, and I just feel like they could have been much better. But anyways, those are my votes, and that's the Create a Card project. And when there's more details on what the heck this project is, because again, as far as we know, there's no official confirmation if we're going to go ahead and limit it down to 1 or limit it down to 2, 4, I don't know. Or is it just going to go ahead and be 8? I would like to see, heck, I would like to see more support for every single Yu-Gi-Oh! Archetype. I think that it'd be cool if every Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck was somewhat viable in the game. But you know what should have been on this list? My Crystal Beast. But let me know, guys, if you guys felt like they missed out on a really cool archetype that could have been added into the Create a Card project as they were RNG chosen. Let me know what you guys would like to see some more support for. I want to see Crystal Beast support because I think the idea is so cool, but they didn't really make use of it. Like, it would have been so cool if they're like, okay, Crystal Beast, if they're in the back row, you can use that as link material for the Crystal Beast link monster. Big brain, right? Anyways, thanks for tuning in, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, drop a like on it. If you're new here, subscribe, turn on that bell so you don't miss out on the more new and exciting announcements for the Create a Card project, as I really like this idea, and having us as fans vote is cool. I like it. Anyways, I'll catch you guys in the next video. I'm going, and I'm out. Peace.